And you're like, that's what I've been trying to tell you. But it was in timing. Everyone say timing. And they could hear. It wasn't until we have ears to hear that we can hear. Right there. Just grab that microphone right there, mister. We need, do you already have a model?
Yeah.
All right.
Sit on the front row.
Teresa? Give it up for our model.
Just go.
Okay.
As you can tell, she's got on a very nice cashmere. Is this thing on? Don't get carried away now. Is this thing on or not?
I don't know. Let's see. It is on now.
Now, how's that?
It's coming through. It's
Okay.
coming through. There you
Anyway,
go.
that's a very nice cashmere coat. It's about 30 some odd years old. I used to have a job where I traveled across the country in some very cold climates. It only took one trip to Chicago during the dead of winter for me to say, I'm buying a coat. I don't care how much it costs. It's got to keep me warm and look nice. And boom, there it is. I love this coat. And why am I bringing this story up? This is about encounters and about benevolence. Hang with me. I'm going to do my best to keep this very short.
This is our offering song.
Could be. Or you might get a basket full of jackets and coats.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, you can do, stay as long as you want.
I'm here for you, Al.
How many were at the other location on Derry Ashford? Derry Ashford is a very busy street. And if you go down south about a half a mile from where the church is, there's a street called Whittington, and there's a convenience store. There on the corner, it's right up from the post office. Anyway, long story short, Grace Point became Grace Point, went on the Grace Message. And on Wednesday night, we used to meet and discuss it. We beat it to death. We didn't discuss it. Anyway, we covered every angle of grace there was and how to be involved in it and under it. So I was coming home that Wednesday night, and that happened to be the coldest night of the year. It's been several years. It was cold, and I had that coat on. I was so glad I did. On the way back, very busy street, I said, my wife said, get us some milk on the way home. Pull in the convenience store. Very busy. People getting gas, buying milk, and whatever else they sell at convenience stores, although I wouldn't know that. I noticed there was this fellow at the door, and I am a soft spot for panhandlers. I can go hang out at the H-E-B parking lot within 5 minutes. There's going to be 2 or 3 people hitting me up for grocery money. I don't know what it is. Have I got a mark on my back?
You do. You do.
Anyway, and I usually give it to them without putting them through some type of a questionnaire. What are you going to use the money for? Da-da-da. I give it to them. That's between them and God from that point on. You can't be that meticulous about it, or you won't give any money away. Anyway, I knew there was this guy standing by the door. He had a T-shirt on. It's 30 degrees. Man, it had to be cold, and he was just standing there doing this. This guy's going to hit me up. I know he is. So I walk up. He says, "Can I trouble you for something?" I said, "Let me go inside and get the milk before I forget it, because I'll forget it and come home. My wife will send me back, and it was cold." I go in, get the milk, put it in my car, and I said, "Okay, what's your story?" Okay, a little discerning there. He says, "I just got out of TDC. I've got a job in Shreveport, Louisiana. Got family there, and I need a bus ticket. And I only got so much money toward that bus ticket." I said, "How much is the bus ticket?" And then he needed just a little bit more. It wasn't that much. So I gave him the money and plus some. And I said, "You got to be hungry." He said, "Yeah, I'm hungry." I said, before I give you this, let me ask you a question. What unit were you in?" I had done business with TDC before. Not been in it. I did business with them, so don't y'all get the wrong idea. He told me the unit. He told me the warden's name. And I just happened to know that was the warden of that particular unit. So I knew he was telling me the truth. So I gave him the money. And I looked at him, and you can imagine, he was sitting there looking at me. I got this nice warm coat on. I'm perfectly comfortable. He's freezing. His teeth are chattering. I said, "You know what? I don't live far from here. And I've got another coat that I'll go and give it to you. 'Cause I know you need one. He said, oh, that'd be so great. That'd be so great. I said, you stay right here. I'll be right back. I was only gone 10 minutes. Ran through the house, and my wife said, what are you doing? I said, I'm going to give that coat away. Your coat away? Yeah. So anyway, I left back. I got back. I wasn't gone more than 10 minutes. This is where it gets eerie and creepy, and the encounter starts to come in. And by the way, I had not realized I'd been in an encounter until this point. We are all in encounters. Yeah. We just don't recognize it and realize it.
That's right. That's good.
From this point on in my life, I started looking for encounters. You know, I wasn't going to avoid them. I wanted to get in them. Mm-hmm. And to make a difference in your life if you realize that and act on it, I think. Anyway, I got back there. There was no traffic on Dairy Ashford. There was nobody in this store. And it was a very vibrant store when I left there 10 minutes previously. Nobody was getting gas. And I couldn't find my friend, my buddy I wanted to give the coat to. I got out of the car and I ran around the back. He wasn't there. Ran around the other side. He wasn't there. About this time, like I said, there was nobody there. It was eerie. There was this big, I want to say it was a Pontiac or a Buick, early 60s, convertible. Coldest day of the year, convertible. He pulls in right next to me where I'm standing. This fella had a driver's hat on. Looked to me like he was a limousine driver to me. But I'm looking, he says, are you looking for that fellow that just got out of TDC? I said, yeah. He said, you gave him some money for a bus, didn't you? Yeah. You went back home to get him a coat, didn't you? I said, yes. No. He said, well, he left. The store manager wouldn't let him hang out here anymore. So he ran him off. I said, do you know where he went? He said he got on a bus and he's gone. He's gone to Shreveport. And I thought, oh my gosh, I want to give him this coat so bad. The fella looked at me. Here's the headshot. Didn't you think about giving him the one you had on? That one. I wouldn't have froze. I would have gotten in my car and gone home, put the other one on if I wanted to. That struck with me. For weeks I walked around with that coat on looking for somebody to give it to. And I didn't have any takers because it warmed up to 75 degrees. And it took me about 2 weeks to realize I'd been in an encounter. There's never a time you go out on Dairy Ashford and there's no traffic. There's never a time you go to the convenience store and nobody, even the clerk wasn't even in the store. So I know I was in an encounter. Some people looked at me and said, you just hung over, or whatever you want to call it. No, that big car, you don't see them anymore. And you certainly don't see drivers going around with a little hat on like that and knew everything I had done previously. You don't see it. Yeah. And if that wasn't the Holy Spirit, Jesus, my Creator, everybody trying to convince Al, you want to help somebody, do it right away. And do it with what you got. Don't put it off. Because if you do, you won't get it done. You'll forget it and go away. So my only wish today is, and I'm done, is I want another encounter where I see this guy, been in TDC, he's going to Shreveport, had a job, had family. I want a vision of seeing him leading a happy life. And hopefully he's got a coat on.
That's good.
That's it.
That's so good.
You know you can't have coat.
Then he ends with, you know you can't have a coat. If you still give by cash or check, raise your hand really big. We want to get your money. If not, you can text up here. We'll throw the texting up here. We thank you guys for giving into this message, getting the word out. We have people, the last 2 weeks we weren't really online that much. We have a lot of people tuning in. 832-956-0150. Thank you guys. Thank you for sewing into that. Anyone else, cash or check? These guys are coming for you. And give it up for Hunter and Lucas are in the house. All right. Anybody else? We're good. There's the text number up there. Thank you so much. I had a bit of an encounter last night. So to follow up what Al was saying, and that encounter wasn't to bring correction for the sake of condemnation, but adjustment for the sake of learning how to flow with the divine. And what I'm learning, we're going to talk about the kingdom today, is everything comes down to timing. Actually, there's not a word for good in the Aramaic, it's blessed. And that word blessed, it means a few things, but it also means to be ripe. A good tree bears good fruit. A bad tree bears bad fruit or evil fruit. The word evil is bisha, which literally means to be overripe or underripe. So, I heard this statement, and I think I said this last week, that the devil or Satan or evil or whatever will say, I was, I am not, I am not, and I shall be. I'm going to start adding a few things to the detox on IamGodsHouse.com. If you want to go to that, we did a mind detox. And we talked about releasing and letting go of the mind, which everything about being in the timing or in the spirit or in the divine flow is about letting go, making room, per se, like the song we just sang. I read that statement that the devil was, I am not, and I shall be. And also, if you put some thought to it, our carnal mind, our natural self, will live in the past and the future, but does not know how to reside in the present. The natural mind. If you live from the natural mind, it's rolling forward, it's rolling backwards, it's where all the fear is contained, it's the playground, if you will, of the enemy. It's where regret, fear for the future, is contained in the natural. If you look at it almost like, it's not that the carnal is evil, but if you look at it like layers of soil, okay, and then there's a deep well underneath. I remember saying to this young man, I saw him at a wedding, and we helped raise him up years ago, and I hadn't seen him in years, and he starts, as soon as he comes up to me, and he was pretty lit, like he'd been drinking, he starts confessing. I mean, I hadn't seen him in years. How hard the year was been, and, almost like, and probably because Darren and I, as we walked in the prophetic, we would see the greatness in somebody. And then when they weren't operating in that greatness, or they were hiding from their own greatness, they would also often hide from us. And probably some condemnation in there, but our heart wasn't for condemnation. Our heart was to pull out the greatness. So he starts confessing what the year had been, and all I said to him is, you're a deep well. Like, although that all may be true, although what you're carrying that you can't get over from the past, or what you're tormented about in the future, that may be true on one level of the soil of your ground, of your being, but you really are a deep well. So that can be going on, not to correct you that that's going on, but to understand there's a deeper space within you already that's a constant flow. And we're learning how to live in that divine flow. And as you know, God, which is it's a German word that meant good. It's kind of a shallow word that we inherited. There's many names for God, but really most of them are just trying to describe God, right? Because we're trying to put words to somebody that you can't describe, right? So Allah was one of the first in Aramaic, one of the words when they were talking about God, or in the Canaanite, the old Canaanite, it was like a lot. It's where you get Abba and Allah in the Arabic. So God, as you know, who did he say he is? Y'all out there? He is the I am. The Spirit, the breath of God is always in the now. If he brings you to your past, he's bringing you in the now. And he'll bring healing to your past, and he'll bring truth to your freedom, to your future, but it's in the now when you're in the Spirit. In the Spirit, what the picture I got as we were worshiping was like I could see a maze. And you're like, you can feel the breeze going through you, this flow-freeing breeze that's driving you forward. It's not directional to your mind. It's not instructional to your thoughts, but it's a driving force. It's how they attempted to describe the Spirit. Even Jesus, it said he was driven into the wilderness. It was by a force, a breeze, a wind. These are trying to put words to it that we would understand. But I could see like a maze, and you're just easily going through it, this maze of life. And you're enjoying the breath of God. You're enjoying the flow and the energy that's flowing through you. And then there's times you could get stuck around the corner of a maze. And you're stuck and you no longer feel the breeze, right? You don't know how to get out. And your mind starts planning and digging and thinking. The carnal mind is a grasping. It means grasping, reaching, herding. It's trying to sort good and evil, trying to work it out, reasoning, okay? All the while you're stuck in a maze that when you get back into the driving force, the breeze will get you through it with ease. The maze being your life. But it is in the letting go. And God is showing me, we can call it many things, but it is control. When I'm still trying to sort and think and work things out, get to the bottom of something, instruct. As I realize the more I encounter God, it's not even for instructional purposes. I had an encounter with Darren last night, and it didn't even pass my mind to get instructions because he was in the room. It's the grasping, hurting mind that wants instructions. Tell me which way to go next. But see, if I tell you which way to go, you could walk away from me. It was never intended for instruction. Our life, this maze, this earth, this place where we are, is intended to know him in all things. In all things. To live in the breeze, to live in the breath, to live in the presence. And what a joy that is. No longer am I getting something right or wrong, but all I can see and be and hear and do and know is him. How much beauty is that? God showed me myself a few days ago. This is me. My hair's so cute. That's me. And he's showing me, because I asked him before I went to sleep, I'm like, you got to help me out. And he's pulling things out in my sleep, or he did then. And I'm like, I don't even know where. You know when you're stuck in the maze, but you don't know how to get out? Because you're still, when you're in that space in your life, it's because you are still living out of the mind and trying to grasp and reach. And the darkened mind isn't a bad thing. It's intended to be darkened because it's where we believe there's separation. The enlightenment, if you will, is when we understand our union and we start operating out of our Christ self, the mind of Christ. And so I could see the swirl. I can, whenever they interpreted the word spirit, it also is the same word as spiral if you go back. And that was just, over here with the Greek, but it also breath, wind, breeze, So we talked about this whirlwind above us a few weeks ago. And so I'm seeing this go around me and through me, and just the enjoyment of being spirit and enjoying the breath and being one with God and the experience of the flow. And then I saw two areas, and he showed me two boxes in my life, and they both had to do with money. He showed me the exact incidences, and where I had constructed, everyone say constructed, or seeded with seed, where I had constructed a decision birthed from fear, having to do with finances. One was a real simple thing. He just showed me what to do. Both of them are really simple. One I've been stuck on, I've been really, really quiet about, because when fear is present, it'd be really smart not to deny its presence because you're stuck in the maze. That there's a beautiful flow and that it hits. You're aware of this. But then not knowing how to get out of it, And so we've been on these roads of we always go back and do our childhood and where this was birthed in our life. And that's good. That's one way. But that can be tiring. Dear God, I'm 51. How many more times do I have to go back? And so God's teaching me in the kingdom, in the divine flow, an easier way. And so as I went to sleep, I could see this whirlwind around me. And then I saw these two incidences. I saw the number. And actually, one was... I'll just tell you, whenever we changed, the finances after Darren left here at the church, we adjusted things because I had a little salary and he had a salary, and I always fought to take. I never wanted to take one. I upped my insurance, and I've been someone that has never really cared about insurance. I remember years ago when we first got insurance. I'm not telling you not to get insurance, but when we first got insurance, there was a sadness that came over me. Darren and I were first married because all we ever did was just trust. And then it gave me something else to trust in. That was my mind back then. And so we were both on insurance here. We got him some good insurance. Praise God for that last year of his life. And so then after he transitioned, I upped mine. And I remember the thought pattern. I can't tell you I felt fear, but I remember the thought pattern that I'm the only one left. Not for the church, but for my children. Like what I need to get in order before I left, And then also just walking through that with him and how thankful I was the coverage, because I saw the bills that came through. And so I made a decision and upped it. And so one of the upped my coverage from the God's house. And so in one of the boxes, I saw the number that I upped it to. But it wasn't about the number, and it wasn't about the insurance. It was God showing me that I constructed or I seeded that decision out of fear, and I saw the breeze, the spirit of the wind of God coming, and then it would stop in my construct. And then the other one was so sweet. It's one I've just sat on because I haven't really known what to do, but I knew I didn't want to look at it or face it. And then God just showed me what to do. And it was in the letting go. Both of them were in the letting go. Now, if you're listening to this with your natural mind, you're building a construct right now. If you listen to Al with a natural mind, you're building a construct. It's not about giving it right away if God's not saying to give it right away. But apparently there was a prompting in him to give it right away. He had a window, a door. And God was teaching him that it's in that flow that you remain in the flow. But if you're listening to that with the mind, then you're going to go, okay, well, I need to write that down. Sometimes God could tell you to do something, and it's in 2 weeks, and you're going to know when to do it. It's not right then. Yeah. But it's being sensitive to the flow. There's a whirlwind that will be released from this place, and it'll be the responsibility that Jesse was talking about, and the ability to respond that Kristen was talking about. And it'll be not building a construct, but I saw people getting caught up in the whirlwind. See, even as I'm speaking right now, I can tell you, I can feel the hearts that are open, and when it bounces back. Darren Josie, I'll give you guys some little secrets. Here's some secrets out there for you guys that didn't know. Darren and Josie and I would, after every service, on the way home, it sounded like Darren after the ball games. It would drive me nuts after every ball game. 45 minutes to an hour, him and Josie had detailed conversations. Yeah, but when they did this, you know what I mean, like back and forth, and how they could have won that game every time. And probably it got on my nerves because I didn't understand it. I was like, just shoot the ball, you know. But after church, every time, that's what we would do. We would discuss, and here's how the discussion goes, guys. This is how, preachers or whatever will do. Did we break through in worship? That's the terminology. And what that means is, in fact, years ago, Joel Osteen's wife actually said this and got a bunch of grief over it on the news or whatever, how the praise and worship part's for us. And it really is. Because right now when we breathe, we're worshiping God. Not necessarily because you sang a song, then he stopped and went, there's the worship. Because some of us are just like parrots, we're just singing a song, right? And a lot of times, even as I was beginning to understand union more and more, most of the songs in the church just wouldn't do me very well anymore because they were still longing, reaching, grasping. And while these country songs, they were making out and getting it. And I'm like, that's me and God, you know what I mean? They were experiencing it right then. So it's not even but the concept of how we've done church is to prepare a place inside of us. What was that second song you sang? Make room. That's really what it is. Like, make room for the seed to come, right? Make room in your ground. That's why they have worship before they have a message. We used to, at youth camp, we used to do the Jabalani, Africa. It's Jabalani, right? And it was a certain dance we would do, and we knew if we could get the kids moving, if we could get them outside of their mind, if we could get them into the words, there'd be a revelation that would be able to be seated in their heart. And it would work every time if you could get them moving. And we'd get as crazy as you can. You guys never saw it, but I saw my husband dance like David, like a crazy man. The things you'll do with teenagers to get them in it and moving and going, and then all of a sudden we're swept away. But the sweeping away is because we were preparing a place like the song we just sang. And that's on you as you mature to prepare that space. And then the seeds would come, the kingdom seeds would come, and then they would grow. And if you're just still sitting there going, I don't know what the blank she's talking about, it's because it's not about what that person is saying. Like, you can be shoulder to shoulder with somebody, and you could be watching a movie or listening to a preacher, and one person's walking away inspired and hearing God and feeling the breeze of heaven. And the other person is still trying to construct with their mind. It is the way the kingdom was set up. Are y'all out there? All right, so I don't even like talking right now because what can you really say? I mean, God is undoing me and redoing things, and I'm just beginning to learn again. So we're gonna talk about the kingdom, and we're gonna do a course on the Lord's Prayer in Aramaic because it's just really beautiful. And as you understand a little bit more, as I'm understanding a little bit more about Aramaic, it was more about the tones and the sounds, the vibrations of words. There's different indigenous languages that there's no way you can say it straight in English. There's no way. And as you understand, I know we've said this and we need to continue to say it, pretty much every Bible you're reading is like a commentary of the Bible. It's been translated so many times. I've been ordering so many books on the Aramaic. One came in and it's all in Aramaic. I just opened it up and put it on my chest like, God. Like I look at it literally and it just makes me want to cry because I'm like, there's the words that he said. And we're so far removed from the words. That's why it takes the Spirit. It's the Spirit, the breath of God that the revelation comes from. And it's so amazing to me that we can walk away so transformed with what little we have in the words, you know. So the first line of the Our Father who is in heaven is Abum Debashemaya Nita Kadasha Shemak. Abum, we've been talking about that. The Almighty, the divine, infinite divine. Movements coming, movements, breath. Something's happening, and the sound, it landed. That's you. He birthed you. He's birthing you now. He's your source. It's the Abum. So in the very first line, you're recognizing that you're not your own. You're recognizing that you are being birthed, that you are, without his breath, there is no you. It's the Abum, okay? So, Debashemaya, the Shem, is the word that they use, the sound for the name, okay? Shemaya is heavenly. Name, whenever we say in Christ, in Jesus' name, name is just one of them. That word Shem is like in his atmosphere, in his frequency, in his vibration, in his light, in him. Can you imagine attempting to say how to live in him? The indescribable, the spirit, the breath. It's not when I pray and then I throw his name at the end of it, right? So the Abun, Debashemaya, our Father who is in heaven. Heaven, I know that we've said these things, but we're thinking about these things. We're pulling them into our life. Heaven isn't somewhere else. That was the concepts that the Greeks brought in and Western Christianity brought in, that heaven was another place. Heaven is a dimension. It's a realm that's all around us. It is a frequency. It is a vibration. It's a realm. It's a dimension. It's Shemaya. So our Father who is all around me, the one that's giving me breath, the one that has created me and forms me, is all around me, sustaining me. Like I'm standing here right now. The very reason we're not flying off into space and, gravity and all these laws that we've, are just still discovering is the Shemaya, keeping things in order. It's how I can be. That's the first line. And you understand, they took Jesus aside and they're like, man, how you getting this? How you doing something that no one's ever done? Like, you're a man. We know that you're a son of man. We know your mother. We know that you're from the earth. And how you getting this? And how do I tune into this? How do I move into this? And then he says, number one, you have to recognize that you're being birthed. You're being sustained by the Shemaya. It's beyond you, your very breath. That was number one. Recognizing that. Talk about worship. And then Nita Kadasha Shemak is our Father who art in heaven. Hallowed be your name. That's what we sang. That you're making room for him. Holiness is spaciousness. It's the spaciousness of God. It's the breeze that comes up. And when you say holy is your name, holy is your Shem, holy is your atmosphere, holy is your light, holy is your being, holy is your presence, you're saying in that line, I'm making room in my earth. Nita is actually earth, where you've landed. Remember, So Nita Kadash sounds like kosher. It sounds like that. When you make something kosher, you make it holy. So it's first I'm recognizing that the very breath of God, the reason I live is He's created me, and He's the Father of all Shemaiah. It's sustaining me. And then I move into that I'm making room in this earth for you. It's the picture of making room in the ground for the seeds to come. It's the picture of a bride preparing the bedroom for the seed to come. It's the picture of preparing for what's coming next, which is the Tete Malkuta, the kingdom. He's teaching them how to make space in their being for the Shemaiah, for the kingdom reign, for the dominion to come. So the second line, or the third line, is Tete Malkuta. That word in Aramaic is Malkuta. It's said it differently. In Hebrew, it's Mamlaka. I'm sure I'm saying that really well. And in Greek, it was translated Basilia. All of those were feminine words. We won't get into that much, but I mean, it would be translated queendom, if you want to be honest. Dig into it. And you know, I've heard a couple things. One, the guy said pretty much in the Middle East, they were more familiar in the ancient days of the queen, preceded kings. Maybe that was it. He's talking to them in their language. It wasn't about male or female, but also the Malkutu, I believe, was a leader of a clan or a tribe or a family before there were cities, and they would go and help prepare a place for where to feed the animals, or prepare a crop or whatever. It was the leader. So very possibly, as he's saying Malkuta, there's a leadership coming. If you translate that word kingdom in Aramaic, it's like empowerment. Empowered by the king, by the Father, empowered. One guy said it's the I can. So you're preparing Nita Kadasha, you're preparing your ground, and holy is your name. Holy is your name, not holy out there somewhere. Holy in me is your being, is your light, is your frequency. I'm creating a space where you can flow in this earth. And then when it says Tete Malkuta, it's come, the kingdom. It's like you're coming. It's happening. So as we go into the word kingdom, let's look at, well, we won't throw it up there yet. In Matthew 5:3, it says, blessed are the poor in spirit, theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Of course, blessed is ripe. We're talking about kingdom, and what God's teaching me is it has so much to do with timing to remain in the flow. The timing is in the I am. When you're in the what was and what shall be, you're already out of the kingdom. You're outside the door because of your mind. Your mind has created the separation. There is no separation. You're still a deep well, but your reality has caused you to feel separated. So you're experiencing separation. I got to get back to God. And God's right here. It's kingdom is the timing. It's now. So blessed are the poor in spirit. One says that poor in spirit is like an idiom, like at the time that meant humble. I like that. That's kind of how we reread it, I think. Blessed, ripe are the poor in spirit. There is the kingdom of heaven. In Aramaic, it would read a little bit closer to ripe. Are those who realize, listen to this, y'all, ripe, blessed, ripe. That means you're getting it. You're mature. You're ready for the picking. You're ripe. Are those that realize that their breath is all they possess. It's the first thing you received in this creation. It's the last thing you release when you leave. It's speaking of a great humility to enter the kingdom, God's way of doing things, God's empowerment, is understanding that I own nothing but my breath. And even that was given to me by the Abba, the breath of life. Breath is my only possession, and so letting go is the only thing that causes me to remain and move and be in the kingdom. And the scripture actually is, blessed are the poor in spirit, there is the kingdom of heaven. So in the empowerment of the Shemaiah, as I realize that my breath is all that I have, that's being poor in spirit, poor in breath, humble in the fact that that's all I have. It's those that have let go of everything else. It's all that I have. Those have the kingdom of heaven. Those have the empowerment of the Shemaiah. Heaven that's all around us. It's the fertile field. It's what surrounds us. Let's see. Heaven is the creative power of God. It's the dimension. It's the divine flow. And what God's teaching me, and my mind doesn't like it, but the joy of letting go and living in the now and enjoying the divine flow. Blessed, ripe are those. It's a really great thing to be blessed. It is a big deal. Let's look at Matthew. Look at my paper, even crumbled up. Matthew 13, let's look at that real quick. Throw it up there, if you will. This will be in the NIV. We could do King James. So here, Yeshua, Jesus, is trying to give them parables. He's speaking to them in their language, okay? He's not speaking to us in our language. He's speaking to them in their language. And so he had just given the parable, and he's like, man, if you don't understand this parable, you're not going to understand anything of the kingdom. And he starts talking about the seeds that are sown and the rocky ground, and you guys know that. Is that it? 13:16. Sorry, I didn't tell you where. I was like, wow. So he goes in and he's speaking to them. He's trying to introduce them to the empowerment of Shemaiah, the empowerment, the life of heaven, which is the kingdom or queendom. It's what's all around them. And how do you attune? I mean, meditate on that word this week, attune. How do I attune? How do I live in the maze and move through the maze with ease? Because it's there for me. The struggle is over. It's there for me. 13, are you up there? 13:16, I believe. Let's look at it. And so then, after he tells them this parable and he has their attention, he said, blessed are your eyes because they see, and your ears because they hear. Ripe are your eyes. He's saying, do you understand? He's almost pleading with them. Your eyes are ripe. You get to see and you get to hear what I'm bringing to the earth. Let's go to the next line. For truly I tell you, Yeshua says, many prophets and righteous people long to see what you see, but they didn't live in that timing. Some of them did see it. Some of them were able to enter into the Shemaiah, into the now of God and see. We know Moses was one of them. Moses saw the beginning from the end. But he's telling them these men that you have followed and you've read their prophecies and they've turned the world upside down. Long to be right here, right now. Right here, right now. Open your eyes that you could see. Long to see what you see, but they did not see it. And to hear what you can hear, but they did not hear it. Don't miss your opportunity. That's what he's saying. It's right here in the now if you'll position yourself for the breath. It's not from a person. It's from the Shemaiah all around you. Let's look at the next one. Listen to what the parable of the sower means. Right here, he's not talking to the multitudes. You know that his disciples would take him aside and say, man, what are you talking about? They were trying to hear it with their ears. They were trying to hear it with their own thinking. What are you talking about? And he'd say, blessed. Do you know what's happening? And he began to explain that parable. We won't go into that one. Let's go on down to 13:24. So he's trying to explain to them what the kingdom is. Everything Jesus did, everything Yeshua did, everything he represented was a door. I'm not belittling it but by saying this word just, but I'm telling you it was just a door. Many walked with him and did not know who he was. Many of us are alive right now and we do not understand the breath that we breathe. If you have ears to hear what was said before I got up here, you could catch it. So then he tells them another parable, the kingdom of heaven, the empowerment of the Shemaiah that's all around you. This thing that you can't see, you know? Plato said we have 5 senses. I'm going to be stuck on that for a while. Scientists now say we have 18 to 21. That just stuff makes me mad. I don't understand why people don't get mad. I get excited when I get mad because once you begin to understand you can't trust what you are following, freedom comes. I'm not mad at the government. I'm just kind of embarrassed that I trusted them ever. Any of them. If they're not because they're all bad and I'm good, but if a man isn't being led and driven by the Spirit, why would I follow that man? He told him another parable, the kingdom, the empowerment of the Shemaiah, the dimension that's holding you up, that's all around you. The empowerment is like a man who sowed good seed in the field. But while everyone was asleep, the enemy came and sowed weeds among the wheat and went away. Keep going. When the wheat sprouted and formed heads, the weeds also appeared. The owner's servant came to him and said, "Sir, didn't you sow good seed in your field? Where then do the weeds come from?" He's like, "Where'd these weeds come from?" "An enemy did this," he replied, and the servant asked him, "Do you want us to go and pull them up?" Listen up. "No," he answered, "because while you're pulling up the weeds, you may uproot the wheat with them. Let both grow together until the harvest. At that time, I will tell the harvesters, first collect the weeds and tie them to the bundles to be burned, and then gather the wheat and bring it into the barn." At that time, the tares looked like wheat, but you couldn't eat it. The weeds didn't look like just a weed in our yard. It looked like wheat. But the weeds, the tares, have a purpose in the kingdom. Let them grow. Now, we were taught so much construct that this is talking about people, the separation from good and evil people. And he's going to burn people up. But he's talking about the kingdom of heaven within us. Okay? He's talking about the enemy, the devil, if you will, the carnal mind came in and sowed seed. And we need to let it grow because it's going to serve its purpose. I wrote this term down. I'm not going to act like I know a lot about it, but it's called permaculture. It's an ecological farming. They in the 70s, they put the word permanent and agriculture together, and this is what they decided to do. I mean, Jesus was talking about it a few thousand years ago, but we're learning about this now, you know. And they are like, let the weeds grow let it all grow together. Rather than going in there and killing all the weeds, we're going to work with nature, and we're going to grow a harvest. And there's a lot of other things in this type of farming that begin to happen. And people are catching on that this is a way that we won't damage our harvest as we let it grow together, because weeds serve a purpose. Yeah. So you look at someone and say, that junk in your mind is going to serve a purpose. These issues in your life are going to serve a purpose. Yeah. The weeds at the time, they could hold the dirt together. I mean, the ground was really loose. It can hold it together. It also can pull in nutrients, nitrogen or whatever, into the soil. And it can prepare the soil for the growth. And we can't even tell what the weeds are until they're full grown oftentimes in our life. Yeah. What I am realizing, especially as a parent, is I would try to pull that stuff out without the timing of God. See, I told you that the word for evil is bisha, and it means out of timing. So I can see what needs to happen in a person. I can see the character issues I need to help work on, maybe that, my child or whatever. And then I start going after him and pulling out those weeds. Not realizing the crop that I kept getting was evil or out of timing. Yeah. And then 10 years later, they see it and they come and tell me the revelation that they saw. And I, out of the goodness of my heart, am trying to give truth. But when you're trying to give truth outside of the flow of God, it is evil.
That's it. That's good.
That's what religion is. Yeah. Strikes me. How about this? This is why I don't know that I even want to talk that much. Like, if God's not saying it, shut up.
Yeah.
Like, can we just make a shirt that says that? Like, we quote what he said, we quote what he said or what he's gonna do. All these doctrines on what's coming and what he's gonna do. What about what he's doing right now? Do you have ears to hear? Do you have eyes to see? Listen, the word glory is weight. It's where you put your weight. That's where you're gonna see. It's where you put the weight of your attention. When he says, like our Father, he's saying, I'm going to tell you how to tune in to heaven. You put your weight on the Father. You put your weight, you put the glory of your life on the one that's birthing you now. That you wouldn't even have breath right now without the birthing one, the parent. How prideful that I'm standing in the corner of the maze trying to figure out how to get out. How silly. What would I say? Silly rabbits, tricks are for kids. How much of my life have I spent in the corner of a maze trying to figure out how to get out, and it's just moving back into the breath, moving back into the breeze, the very joy of heaven, the very joy of God. But it's in the letting go. It's those that get really small, they can enter the kingdom. And re-enter and re-enter and re-enter and re-enter and re-enter. It's in the letting go. There's no process, guys. There's no process. I've made it so hard. And I couldn't see it until as far as I saw, like as a parent, you see, well, my intentions are right. Excuse me, but screw your intentions, because they're not producing the life of heaven. And I'm talking to myself. We try to make disciples without the Spirit, without the breath, without the now, and God's only in the now. So this young man that's confessing to me at the wedding all the things that were going on in his life, all I said was, you're a deep well. What Darren and I spent years doing is we spent years trying to solve problem after problem with people and ourselves that were living from this right here. Yeah. And deliverance can be part of that, guys.
That's right. Come on.
Always going back to your past to determine your future. I'm telling you, there's an easy button.
Yes.
And it's not about just denying. It's about getting in the flow. And then the laughter comes. I saw Brad this morning. I'm like, he's going to pray for some people. It's crazy. It is, Brittany. He's the key to lead you out. Any judgment that you've had on how he's lived, like, release it and let it go. He's the key to lead you out. I know it's annoying when he's laughing and he should be trying to figure out how to get out of this corner. But that's all that comes. I used to go into intercession, and groan and cry, and it would be beautiful. We birthed a lot of things. But then about 15 years ago, it would always end in this crazy laughter. Because it's already happened. It's already finished. It's moving. If you're living in the Shemaiah, if you're living in the kingdom of heaven, if you're in the breeze of God, it's finished. I mean, are you really even in the maze? If you're blowing through it, I'm just blowing and going. I'm passing through. Jesus moved into a time of his life that he didn't have to figure another thing out. The time frame of what I need to hear God about, and then we were spending time hearing God, would get shorter and shorter until you're just in this dance.
Yeah.
The kingdom, the kingdom. Then he goes on in 13:31, so the weeds and the wheat. This is the thing that God was speaking to me. Just let it grow. And I've had a problem just letting the weeds grow. I didn't want you to represent me when you still had this major attitude or this major issue that's undone. But God hasn't. If God, I don't like it. I don't like this, you guys. This is my natural mind speaking. Ready? I don't like being a leader right now, leading something, because there's a part of me that wants a construct.
Yeah.
Well, then tell me what the boundary is. I mean, really, what if somebody walks in that door and you see that they are murderous, and God says, put them on your leadership team, and you don't know that Saul is about to get the Paul experience, and you're standing here vulnerable because you're going to be up for what people think, and your mind's accusing you. It's very uncomfortable to the carnal mind to begin to live in the Shemaiah. But it's in the letting go, and you can trust. You can trust the wind. You can trust the breath. You can trust the Spirit. It's really all you have. It's really all we have is our breath. Once when the breath leaves us, this part that you see that's just so amazing is just going to go back into the ground. What are we holding on to? I understand, trust me, I understand missing a person. I understand the grief and what comes when you've lived your life physically with somebody, okay? But I do not understand the shock that we live in when people die. I think it's ignorance, like Darren said, ignorance before breakfast. Guys, in this creation, our physical bodies die. Right? We can laugh through the whole thing. It's a bad joke. Because it's really not even us. We just change forms. The shock is in your mind. The shock is because you can't put your mind around the fact that you are the breath of God. You are his expression. Did he not say he spoke it all into existence? It's his breath that's sustaining us. It's his breath that's breathing us and giving us life. And that will never end. You guys heard me say a while back, there's one thing I heard that we can never imagine. You guys try this and tell me. You guys can message me on YouTube. There'll be one person that says, I can do it, That'd be great. One thing that's impossible for you to do. You ready? Imagine yourself not existing. It's not possible. You could imagine yourself at your own funeral, but who's seeing it? You're seeing it. Our very fear is to not exist. And as we let it go, it's a joke, you guys, because we will always exist. There's a part of us that is not created. It's uncreated. It always was. It's the breath of God. And as we hold on to the part that's created, that is the very construct or the seeds that are decisions created by fear that stop the flow. And Jesus just moved through his life. Did you see what you did? Oh, man, I didn't know. I was so drunk and caught up in Father. What? 10,000 were fed, He goes on to, speaking of timing, in the kingdom, 13:31, he goes on, he compares it to a mustard seed. I didn't know this. I just learned this week that the mustard seed was a very common thing. It was actually considered, though, like a weed. It wasn't something that they didn't eat it. They thought it would make you crazy, so they didn't use it for spice back then, and it just grew all over the place. So he's comparing the kingdom to something that grew all over the place that you can't stop. And it had its purpose. And it's wild. There's a reason that the man that came to introduce the kingdom was a wild, crazy man. He's like, there's something coming. There's a king coming. There's a son of man coming that's full of God, a son of God, son of man coming, and you can't contain him. Just the same way John the Baptist, it said he was the greatest of all the prophets. It never records one miracle that he did. He said, the same way you can't contain me. I'm a wild man in the wilderness. He didn't play by anybody's rules, and he came to introduce this new way of doing things. And then it goes on into 13:30. Jesus is still saying parables. All right, how else can I tell you this empowerment, this malkuta, this kingdom, the I can, what empowers me to live and move and breathe and operate from a different space. Let me see. Another way is it's like yeast. Man, they got a picture right then. They understood. They had celebrated the Passover. They understood what yeast without bread was. It was the unleavened bread. They celebrated it every year. It was whenever we had to leave hastily out of slavery. We had to leave Egypt, right? The Israelites had to leave. They didn't have time. Everyone say time. They didn't have time to put the yeast and allow the yeast to rise. But now he's comparing the kingdom to yeast. He's saying, it's here. I sowed it into mankind. That's what's happening. When I raise up, it's all mankind. It's like yeast, and it's going to take over. He's speaking to them of timing. He's speaking to them in a language that they can hopefully understand. But they needed to look behind the door. You know what I mean? They needed to look past the door into the kingdom. He was the door into the kingdom. He was the door into the kingdom. He was the door into the kingdom of heaven. He was the door into the empowerment of the Shemaiah, the dimension that's all around us right now. And we've been so asleep, we're trying to reach something that's all around us. It's in every cell of our being. That's why we called all those weekends the awakening. It's an awakening to what is, not what's coming. I don't want to wait for what's coming. To what is. And what God's teaching me is it's in the release of what was and what will be, which is the carnal mind. It's in the release that I experienced the breath again, and I'm back in the flow, and I'm like, would you look at here? I'm moving through this maze with ease. And people are like, where are you getting your joy? Where are you getting your this? Where are you getting your that? And you're like, it is who I am. I'm not stuck, like Joni says. When it says the evil one came and sowed seeds, when it talks about the enemy, it says the enemy came and sowed seeds. That word actually means, in Aramaic, one that's out of rhythm. Your enemy is one that's out of rhythm. Musicians would understand that. That's my enemy. There's a rhythm of heaven. Your life has a rhythm. Now scientists have several years ago discovered that your DNA plays music. There's a rhythm to your life. This is the beauty, guy. This is nobody else's rhythm. It's part of the grand choir. It's part of the whole creation, your life. And as I followed a man, as I followed a construct, as I followed an idea, I lost my rhythm and became my own enemy. I began to live out of the seeds that were weeds, but it's okay. You know what I think is so beautiful? When they, at the end of that parable, they took the weeds or the tares and they said, let them grow, just let them grow. You're going to make it. You're going to make it into maturity in the kingdom. And then they bundle them up and they burn them. You know what they do with ash? It goes back in to fertilize the ground. All things redeemed. It's the alchemy. I do, Jesse. I forgot David, I want to get with David and tell him the whole thing that we're starting to create. The Bible is an alchemical book. It's a plan. Everything is purified in Him. It's a matter of timing. Darren taught that. Each in his own time. That's a scripture that everybody was stumped in. It says, when it says all died in Adam, John Keithley speaks on this scripture a lot. All are made alive in Christ. And then the next line talks about timing. So when you see that person that's acting like a crazy person, an idiot, I've acted like an idiot, or they're being awful, or they're a criminal, whatever, worse at all. In time. In time, and not just in this creation, I don't believe. There'll be an awakening to the truth of who they are. The part that's heartbreaking is they think they're that. That's what's heartbreaking. When you're acting like that, you think that you're something that you're not. That's why Darren just settled and preached on identity all the time. You're acting out of time, like in time. You're here to mature and see the truth of who you are. The breath of God, the very expression of God. Is there anything else I need to say? What do y'all think? It's your life. It's God's breath. Hear His expression. Listen, when you are accused of how you acted, that always comes from this space. If it's conviction and you need to deal with something, the I am will bring you back and release life into it. And you remain in the I am. You remain in the timing. Okay? So understand, and what it's not, I need to work on that. Understand it's just there. The weeds are just there. The carnal is just there. It's influence. You were in things that you did were influenced on how you were wounded, or how you were raised, or who someone told you were, or who you believed you were. Okay? It's okay. It's all right. But you're a deep, deep well. And you're going to learn to live from a deeper space. And in it, you're going to realize that, and even as the weeds are maturing, that it's going to be for your good. It's held the dirt in place. It's pulled in nutrients for you. I mean, listen, most of the time, this is hard. I say this with emotion. I have to announce when I have emotion. Here it comes. Breathe in the emotion. Most of the time in my life, I didn't enter the holy is your name. I didn't really make space for Him until I saw the weeds that were completely mature.
Wow. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Until you see what you're capable of. That's until the humility comes. And humility doesn't come. It hurts the carnal man. It hurts us. But in that place, it's not to rebuild something. It's not to... This construct that was keeping me, it can be justified. I could tell you, and you guys would think it's reasonable. It wasn't like things I thought I'm going to do out of evil, but I could tell the flow left. And God's teaching me how to live outside of the system. We're not going to live in a building that somebody else owns. We're going to come out of every system as we live in the flow. Yeah. But in it, he'll show you little areas where you've constructed fear, and it stopped the flow in your life. This beautiful flow, the breeze that blows through your pipes and the instrument plays, the beautiful notes that you're here to bring to the earth. And so in it, a lot of times I hadn't made space until I got to the end of myself. God was speaking to me about, whenever he said, when Yeshua hung out with sinners, and I believe it's true, a lot of them were at the end of their self. But, a lot of them also were looking for another substance to escape this. A lot of times we, take in a substance and drink or drugs or whatever because we're escaping this, when in the I am, it literally is a drunken state. Yeah. It's the most pleasurable state you can be in. And it's not about one or the other, but what I'm saying is this is just going to be there, and as you dive into this, it'll permeate into every area of your life. I really don't know what else to say. You want to say something? All right, sister. Sister, don't get in between me and my mister. Sister. That's the song. You're going to hear it through this. Do you want to?
No, I want you.
Okay. So we're going to go more into it because I got to dig more into it. So understand, you guys that are scholars out there, that I'm just learning, and I'll probably always just be learning and whatever. So the amen at the end of the prayer, amen, we said this, is basically saying, now I've received. Now my earth has received. Yeah. I've received the seed.
Yeah.
And we're the earth.
Yeah.
The seed has always been. Before time, you were the seed. Yeah. And the seed was in you. And he was, you know what I'm saying? And that's the man. Mm-hmm. And that, what she's talking about, that is a divine construct. That seed is a divine construct that we're to live in. And when she's talking about getting small, that just reminded me of going through that eye of the needle. We get small and we be like that wordless infant child where we hold things loosely. And then we move into what, the man, the seed that's on the inside of us, the divine construct. That's where we're to live and where we to be. Mm-hmm. And so as you were talking, Sheila, this is so amazing. We got to go back and listen to this over and over. This was so good. But the thing that so struck me was that, man, that seed in your earth, your body, that's to come forth. And that is so exciting to me. This is so exciting, that divine construct of Father, that amen, that's on the inside. And it's, say it again, Sheila. The man.
Oh, the abun or the man. Mm-hmm. The is infinite divine.
Infinite, yeah. Mm-hmm. Isn't that awesome? Mm-hmm. I just wanted to say that because I think that that's a part of this. Mm-hmm. And I think that is so exciting. Our ground. So what are you letting allow? What are the weeds in our ground that needs to come up in its appropriate time? Yeah. Because it does grow with it. And I just did a gardening class, and a lot of the things we did take up the weeds. But there were some things, as she said, that we let grow up because it would have destroyed the ground. Mm-hmm. And it would have taken some of the nutrients from the plant to grow. So I'm just excited about this. That's all I wanted to say. That I'm really
so good,
excited.
Because you can't lose. We have to get out of our mind that any level of regret, I wish I would have known this or anything, like your life brought you here. And you may not be able to see it with your mind that this served a purpose, but it served a purpose in your soil. And the purpose is redemption. Yeah. And the purpose is empowerment, kingdom empowerment. And the purpose is to release others in the timing when God tells you to go and snatch them out. And the part that God was showing me, I'll re-say this with raising children. And I say that because it's the way you run your house is the way you're going to run the house of God, right? It's how you run your life. Is I would say things that God's saying. Even when I get revelation now, a lot of times it's for me. It's very scary to get up and share it because it may not be for you. And that was one of the things when Darren came in the room last night. That's what I was asking God. Are you like, I feel that I know my path right now. And my path has always been kind of out there, you guys. I kept a little bit more quiet because I didn't have a microphone in my face. But I would move into something that I wouldn't say it much about, and then about 5 years later, it would be where you could talk about it with people. And I would do this often, like books, things that I would get on this path. And we're in a day now that people are just open to so many things. I mean, they're just like, what are you doing? You know what I mean? And if you listen, you can just hear keywords, and you're like, oh, that's the path they're on. I'm on that. But anyway, so I was just asking God, I'm like, is this, because it's all I would do if it was me without this. You know what I mean? It's all I would do. But it's scary then to do this because I'm not expecting to. I haven't known how to, if you're supposed to dumb it down over here. You know, like you don't want to choke. I don't want to go into, like, not y'all, but like you're teaching third graders. You don't want to teach them whatever. And so not knowing how to do the two, but being so hungry for what's happening here and not wanting to leave it. You know what I mean? And what's happening in the earth is people are getting caught up in it. And people are just okay. People are letting go of their mind and the constructs. And those of you that have been in church for years and how you're supposed to think, it is in the letting go. Don't be afraid to let go. That part of you that's afraid to be deceived is the part of you that's already deceived. And let's just take it away from the word deception, okay? We're outgrowing things. We're outgrowing things. So I wasn't in deception when I thought there was just addition. I outgrew addition and we moved into multiplication. It's part of the growth. Does that make sense? And in the constructs that we built in church, that's why we have so many, over 44,000 different Christian denominations. These are all the constructs that we built. And so it's because our mind wants to nail down what's right. Yep. And that's okay. Be okay with that. But just understand that that's your carnal mind. This is the playground right here. That is the part that is very uncomfortable living in the now and not knowing. But there is a part of you, like that child on Christmas morning, that's excited in the now. And God's going to have you do some things that just look like letting go. They're ridiculous. I said a few years ago, if we just start skipping, and then scientists came and said what it does to your brain if you skip. I guess I was saying it out of time. Just start skipping everywhere you go. Brad, will you skip? Yeah. You can go ahead and play some music. Let's stand up. If anybody wants Brad to pray for you, we're not giving words or anything, but we're just going to pray. We'd love to just release life over you. Anybody else that wants to come up here? Blake, you can come up here. Anybody else? Jesse. David, if you want to. Yeah. You got to be quicker. You got to be quicker, girl. I like it.
Over the Christmas holidays, I had to kind of like slow it down because I was getting into the excitement of the holidays. It was my first like holidays to say that I enjoyed it. And I got invited by some neighbors to come over and have coffee. So I didn't really want to go because I was so busy. So I had to stop my busyness and just take the time and receive the invitation. So when I go over and we cross over, and this is new, like we don't go to neighbors. This is me relearning like how to live. And so I go, and I'm so received by them. They have this most beautiful table set up, and it's amazing just looking at their love. And I'm like, before I can get in, I'm in pieces already. And so I walk in, and she's like, I prepared this table for you. And I'm like, wow, you don't even know me. And she said, we sat down, and she said, Melissa, the pain is over. The struggle is over. The hard times are over. She said, and I know you've struggled, and I know there's been hard times, and I know there's been pain. She said, but it's over. And I looked at her, and I went, she said, it's good now, right? And I said, yes. She said, it's beautiful, right? And I said, yes. She said, this is how you'll live from now on. And I said, wow. And she said, sit down and let's have coffee. And this is from someone that I don't know, but I had to stop what I thought I needed to do, stop my plans, stop my ideas, to be invited so that I could hear what God had to say to me. But he's not saying that the pain that happened before is like, he's not throwing it away like nothing, but he's just saying that it's over. Mm-hmm. And that the good time is now. Enjoy. This is the time to enjoy, because that's done with. The struggle is done. That's what she said. The struggle
you outgrew
is done. Yes, it served its purpose. Mm-hmm. And I said, wow. And so when I left, I was so, and she didn't bring me out a Bible. She didn't do any of that. They even made homemade eggnog with like this amazing liquor. And I said, dang, it's like candy. And I was like embraced by like grandparents. That's who, and I went, wow, I was so loved by just that one moment, by me stopping what I thought I needed to do to be able to receive what Father had for me. And I just released that to y'all, that it's over. The struggle is over. And it's good. It is so good. Even when you think that it's not good, it's good.
Mm-hmm. You can stay up here. So this is what we're going to do. Go ahead and put that music on, Xavier. We're not doing this for instructions or words. You can start playing it. We're just releasing flow and just loving on people. So if you guys want to pray together, anybody else that wants to pray together, if not, you guys just go ahead and come up here. I love you guys. You are ripe for the picking. I want some crank it up.